you got any questions about politics, then just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you don't know too much about it. I know it can be like trying to learn a new language, so you're able to ask me anything that you like without any kind of fear of judgment or ridicule or roasting or debating. I'm not here to yell at people. I'm not here to try to call people stupid or own them or have fights with people on the live stream. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics, regardless of if you are right wing or left wing or anywhere in between. I don't care if you're more conservative than me or more liberal than me. You can ask me anything that you like, as long as you are asking in good faith. I will do my best to give you a good faith, sincere, objective response. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know that it can be like trying to learn a new language. It took me a really long time to get a handle on everything that's going on in the government and who the important people are and what the various agencies do. And it's such a massive topic that I'm still constantly learning about it. And so, it is nothing to be ashamed of to not fully understand or be daily up on all of the things that our government is doing. But that is what this show is for, where you can ask any question that you got bouncing around in your noodle around politics, and you don't have to worry about getting judged or ridiculed or anything like that. Maybe you live in a place where if you ask a certain question, you're worried that people would think that you were some sort of squishy cuck libtard, or maybe you live in a place where if you ask a certain question, you're worried that people would think that you were a MAGA fascist. Well, you can ask me any question that you like here. There's no judgments, there's no debating, there's no roasting whatsoever. Nicholas says, release the Epstein files. I don't have the power to do that, Nicholas, but I appreciate you being here. So, yeah, any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I hope everybody's having a great Friday. I know that it can be really difficult to, you know, to have a great, perspective with the news being the way that it is, but, oh, excuse me. That is the work, guys. Chris Storter says, you like Zoran? I do like Zoran, and I want to make sure that this message gets to everybody out there in the world that, number one, the billionaires are not done trying to torpedo Mamdani. And so if you support him, you got to keep on supporting him. You got to take with a massive grain of salt any of these billionaire-funded hit pieces that are going to come out about him. And if he wins the general election in November, then the billionaires are going to try to torpedo his agenda. And then they're going to write a whole bunch of think pieces about how socialists don't get things done. DCB Lank says, why are neoliberals the vein of America? Not sure what you mean. Do you mean the bane of America, DCB? But yeah, I don't. Obviously, I am not a neoliberal. It's not my vibe. But I wonder how much the neoliberal agenda was kind of necessary in like the early 90s and the early 2000s, because that's where the country was for 12 years. The Democrats were just getting their fucking asses handed to them, and so maybe they needed to be a little bit more business friendly globalists as opposed to the kind of Jimmy Carter Democrats that there were in the past. So yeah, I don't have any. There's no love lost between me and the neoliberals, but I also think that this attitude that we have these days of like it's so obviously dumb and stupid. It's like, well, I don't know. Were you there? Like were you trying to win elections in '92? All right, J805 says, hello there. What do you think about insurance in this country? I hate it. I hate it too. We would save a lot of money and lives and heartache if we just had universal health care. Joe Midland says, will John Ossoff lose in 2026? He won't if people like you and me do the work to make sure that he wins his election, Joe. I don't do predictions here, but I will say that, we all have agency in winning or losing these races. I wanted Katie Porter to win the Senate primary in California. I did not do enough work to make that happen. And then she lost to Adam Schiff, who I also like, but I just like Katie Porter a little bit more. And so that's on me, Comics and stuff says, how did MAGAs get so into conspiracy theories? So, this is not to say that people in MAGA are dumb or gullible. But if you are somebody who didn't graduate high school or did not graduate college, then it is much more likely that you vote Republican than that you vote Democrat. And so maybe not getting education doesn't mean that you're not smart, but maybe you do learn things when you get an education that make you less susceptible to believing conspiracy theories and things like that. I believe statistically, this is like no tea, no shade, but I believe that statistically, if you are right wing, you are more susceptible to believing conspiracy theories, and that probably has to do with getting less of an education. All right, Justin says, do you think constant war is the main cause of the 20 trillion added to America's debt since the 90s? I would say that's a really good question. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I know that that has been a significant drain on America's finances. But also, we haven't had the revenue because every Republican administration since Reagan has massively cut taxes for the top 1% and has massively cut taxes for their corporations and shit like that. The Casual Dan says, yes or no, Ronald Reagan has caused most of the things that are so wrong with this country. I think Ronald Reagan was one piece of the pie, but I don't think that's. I think it's a little simplistic to put it all on his shoulders, like the Koch brothers and their shadowy network of shitty libertarian billionaires has been doing the work of what Reagan accomplished long before Reagan was there, and they continued after he was gone. Let's see here. Moon Man Chi says, do you think it's time to pack the Supreme Court? So the Supreme Court's been packed. It's packed right now. I believe in Supreme Court seat expansion, which is when Democrats use that framing of we need to pack the Supreme Court, it makes it seem like what we're doing is really shady or trying to cheat. What happened was the Republican Party cheated. They packed the Supreme Court with a bunch of far right-wing ideologues. They don't give a shit about the rule of law. They just do whatever the Republican is in the best interests of the Republican Party and the billionaire class and Donald Trump. What we need to do is fix the courts. We need to rebalance the court. We need to expand the court. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Godless Gratitude says Nixon gave corporations personhood. I don't think that's accurate. I think that Citizens United did, didn't it? Starlink says, what is a woman? I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Justin says, LOL, you mean higher chance of indoctrination. Education has nothing to do with questioning authority. Yes, it does. That's the entire point of education, Justin. And just because you think that a person getting an education, leaves that education being more left-leaning than right-leaning, doesn't mean it's indoctrination. What if it's because the people that are getting an education are learning the truth? Is that a possibility that you have considered, Justin? Equilibrium says, how much money has Trump received from pro-Israel political groups? I don't know. I know it's a lot, and we'll never know because right now he has a crypto coin, which means that he is able to accept unlimited amounts of dark money bribes from anybody, and we'll never be able to figure out who those people are. There's no tracing those transactions. Tyro Pillar, good to see you again. Did the Wall Street Journal put a bigger target on their back? I mean, the number of people who are now on Trump's shit list because they refuse to stop talking about Epstein is wide. And that is valuable. Like, what people recognize is that when you acquiesce before you're forced to acquiesce to authoritarians, what you are doing is you're putting a big target on the backs of the people who are brave enough to not acquiesce. But the more of us that stand up and fight, the more periodicals and institutions of higher education and law firms and television news programs, et cetera, that stand up, there are just too many targets for them to focus on all of us. And so, yeah, it's better for everybody in the long run. Indestructible Undying says, do you think if America closes all foreign U.S. Army posts, that it can save money and spend less on the military budget? Yes, and I wonder what the value proposition would be for not doing that. Like, I wonder what we believe we are accomplishing by having those army bases, foreign army bases, owned and operating. I'm not saying that there is no value. I'm just saying I don't know the argument off the top of my head. Fog War Productions, great to see you again. I saw your message. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but thank you for sending it to me. I really appreciate you educating me on those mineral lease deals that you were telling me about. Fog War Productions, liberals, urbanites have a larger economic incentive to attend college than conservatives, ruralites. Potentially, I might argue that because the economy is kind of built around people that have a college education. A college education is what a high school diploma used to be, that everybody's incentivized to get a college education. Now, whether or not those systems are still fair and it still is the right move for everybody to get a college degree, that is up for debate. Ezra Arze said, maybe we should put age limit on SCOTUS justices also. I don't see why not. Why don't we also have term limits so that it's not lifetime appointments? Cheryl says, we right-wingers educate ourselves rather than listening to leftist professors. We aren't uneducated. Technically, Cheryl, you are uneducated. If you don't graduate high school or graduate college, you are, by definition, either uneducated or undereducated. And again, I don't think that means that you're dumb, but statistically, people on the right wing tend to believe conspiracy theories more than people on the left wing. And so, what does that tell you, Cheryl? I don't think you're in good faith, so I'm not really going to hold my breath for a, sincere response from you. Timmy Tim says, "What do you think about CBS canceling Colbert so they can favor Trump for merger approval?" I mean, obviously, it is. It's corruption. It's grift. It's wildly unethical. It's wildly immoral. I've been a fan of Colbert for a really long time, so it's a real fucking bummer. Joseph the Professor says, okay, is Trump a consummate liar and con? 100%. Easiest question I've answered all day. Patrick Day says, when does the Democrat Party completely fold? I say they are 2 more presidential elections away. I disagree with that. I think the Democratic Party is probably getting better right now than it has been in a long time because we have such a progressive, what do you call it? We have such a strong progressive wing in the party these days. SK8 says, he a multimillionaire, he'll be okay. I mean, it's still a bummer, What if he wanted to keep doing his show? Just because he has money doesn't mean that, he doesn't enjoy going to work and doing his job. Godless Gratitude says, David Hogg is also doing great work. Yeah, I like him, he's fine. Let's see here. Godless Gratitude says, I come from a right-wing household. I had to deprogram just to think critically in my adulthood, and I'm so glad that you did. Godless. Alrighty. Original name, aka, says, what do you think about the outcome of the tariffs? Prices are going up. Inflation is going up. The value of the dollar is crashing. The bond market is crashing. American farmers are losing out on massive amounts of revenue. Jobs are, unemployment is going up. Yeah, nothing good. Nothing good is happening. Let's see here. The real Jay Villa is here. Hello. Ezra Arce says, if it was up to you, what punishment would you give to Trump? I mean, I think an argument for life in jail is completely valid. The crimes that he has committed are substantive. I don't believe in the death penalty, but fomenting a coup, unprecedented grift and corruption, really kind of traitorous behavior, I would say, in inciting violence, 92 felony counts. That feels like a life sentence to me. Conversational lady says, yes, I agree, unless he dropped dead. Well, then, I mean, that still would technically be a life sentence. Yorkie says, Trump is doing what he was voted to do, ? I don't think so. D says, do you think we will get to vote in 2026? We will. Republicans are going to do shady things, but whether they get away with it is entirely up to us. If we do the work, then they don't get away with it. So do the work. Thomas Kilpatrick says, that would be 2 years considering hell to be alive. Not really sure what you mean by that. That would be 2 years. I'm going to skip that one. Toxic Light says, thoughts on schoolyard taunt rather than critical thinking and progressive attitudes in our politics. Obviously, I am on the side of critical thinking and progressive attitudes. Let's see here. Conversational Lady says, will Democrats win the House? I don't do predictions, but I will say this. Polling suggests that Democrats have a really good chance to take back the House. But whether they do or not depends entirely on us, whether we do the work of winning them the House. Thomas says, Tulsi has just uncovered direct evidence that Obama directed the Russia collusion hoax in 2016. I don't think that's accurate, Thomas. Even if you read that somewhere, I don't trust Tulsi Gabbard. She's a liar. She fired somebody in the intelligence agencies for not giving her the intelligence that she wanted. She wanted an outcome, and she asked her officers to give her intelligence that backed up that outcome. That's not the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to collect intelligence and then come up with your conclusions based on that intelligence. Isaac Mendez says, aren't Democrats and Republicans the same coin, just different sides? No, Isaac, that is inaccurate. I understand why it might feel that way sometimes. There's also a lot of propaganda and misinformation out there that says that that's the case, but it's actually not the case at all. The platforms are wildly different. Outcomes are wildly different. The politicians are wildly different. There is a huge gulf between the things that were happening during the Biden administration and the things that happened during both Trump administrations. There are 1,000 examples of this, my guy. Fog War Production says, those intelligence practices don't sound very intelligent. LOL, I completely agree. Chopped by Jay says, so you would trust her if she stayed Team Democrats? Absolutely not. She has, even if she was a Democrat right now, I don't trust, I didn't trust Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema, and they were Democrats. Yeah, she has completely thrown all of her credibility in the garbage. Tulsi Gabbard has. Alex says, "Is it true a GOP congresswoman introduced an amnesty plan? What's going on?" I have not seen that reporting, Alex, but I hope that she has. Dan Blackroyd, I love when people say there's direct evidence. In parentheses, insert total misunderstanding of how anything works. Dark and Mysterious says, under Trump, the average salary of blue collar workers has increased 1.7%, highest in 60 years. I don't believe that is accurate, Dark and Mysterious. Let's see here. All right, well, now you're spamming the comments, so you are out of here. See you later. All right, Xander, hope you had a good day. What's up, Xander? I am, what do you call it? I am enjoying our dialogue in the DMs. I hope that you are getting as much from it as I am. Let's see here. Robert Cade says GDP going down, all the more reason they want to control interest rates. That is accurate. Caden Brown says, can you define a centrist? I guess a centrist is somebody who believes that there's good and bad on both sides of the aisle, and that there's too much extreme partisanship in government, and so they think that the logical solution is just to sort of like be in the middle and recognize that there's some good things about certain right-wing politicians and good things about certain left-wing politicians and vice versa. I don't think it's accurate to be a centrist, but that's what it is, I think. Mayor of the Internet says, hey, tell me a conspiracy theory. I'm all out of fun ones for you. There's birds aren't real. That's a pretty fun one. Let's see here. All right, scrolling up. Alrighty. Conversational lady, thank you for being here. Alice says, people better be careful of what they say. I do not believe that they do need to be careful. Alice, are you threatening us with sending ice after us or some shit? Yorkie says, should we build a California high-speed rail to nowhere for the next 20 years in California? Yorkie, have you read Abundance by Ezra Klein? That really seems like it's right out of there. Theloni says, I'm glad science lost on November 5th. Not me. Let's see here. Thomas Kilpatrick says, where's the receipt? Don't know what that means. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Robert Dowell says, who will be the Republican candidate next election? It is going to be Donald Trump until he dies. Like, there's no anybody else on the ticket until he dies. He's going to try to stay in office until he kicks it. Pookie says, should we terminate the Israel relationship after the Jonathan Pollard Epstein spying? I don't know what that is, but I do believe that the Netanyahu government has been a very bad ally to America for a long time. And so, yeah, we 100% should not be sending them money or weapons any longer. Birth Mass Brian says, should we trolley problem the billionaire class? Can you describe that more, please? That sounds interesting. Robert Dowell says, who will be the Democratic candidates? I don't really like doing any wish casting for 28 because I'm trying to get everybody focused on 26. We got midterm elections coming up, and if I had my druthers, then we would unelect every Republican that is currently in office, from president to dog catcher. And I think that the Republican Party needs to suffer massive electoral consequences for the shit that they have been doing just in the past 6 months. It's unfucking believable. The corruption, the barbarism, the fucking cutting off our nose to spite our face, the waste of money, the waste of human life, the capitulation to the billionaire class. Like, what the fuck, guys? Like, what are we even doing here? Timmy Tim says, can you explain the Ezra Klein comment? Always enjoyed his commentary. So somebody who I believe was not here in good faith just commented that should California build a high-speed rail to nowhere for 20 years? And that the reference there is to this book that Ezra Klein wrote called Abundance, about how for some reason it's harder to get things done in blue states than red states. And he puts the blame on burdensome regulation. Now, I haven't read the book yet. The surface level interpretation of the book, and the reason why people have been criticizing it so much, is that it could be boiled down into a conservative argument for small government, basically saying, like, we need to finish all these things. We need to finish high-speed rail. We need to finish green energy projects. We need to transform our entire electrical grid. And if we allow capture by bad faith actors to slow down that process by creating mountains and mountains of of regulation, then we're not going to be able to accomplish all these things that we need to accomplish in time. Apparently, it's much more nuanced than that. I have not read the book yet, but I have listened to Ezra Klein do a bunch of interviews about the book that I think are, illuminating. Where I don't think that the answer is he's not advocating for conservative politics, but he is asking, I guess, the Democratic Party to look at the way that bad faith actors have been able to use the process of government and red tape to stop projects that they don't want to happen. CS17 says, is this book about accelerationism? I don't think so. But again, I haven't read it yet. It doesn't seem like it is. Alex says, why does it seem our MAGA movement is struggling despite doing everything right? Alex, the MAGA movement is not doing everything right. Also, I don't think that you're actually here in good faith, so you're out of here. Alrighty. But Dan Blackburn says, I hate to say Klein is irresponsible for writing a nuanced take when America is so stupid, but Dan, goddamn Dan, you're always on point. 10 out of 10. You never don't hit the bullseye. Godless Gratitude says, I have not met a good conservative. I'm sure that there are good people out there, but if we're talking about politicians and talking heads, then 100% I agree with you. Alrighty, let's see here. Godless Gratitude says, Rockland County case in New York is just the beginning of fraud to be found. Let's see how it goes, Godless. Angry Long Island Vet says 2024 was the alcoholic Kamala Harris. 2028, it's the bartender AOC. First of all, Kamala Harris isn't an alcoholic, and why is it bad that AOC started her political career as a bartender? Do you not support the working class? Angry Long Island Vets. Flamingo Mo says, I think the candidate for 2028 will emerge after the midterms, potentially. Alec McLeod says, J.D. Vance will not run, not while Trump's still alive, Otherwise, he'll kill his career the way that he did DeSantis. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Godless Bartender says, Godless Gratitude says, I'm a bartender. I used to be a waiter, cut from the same cloth here. Diego Vargas says, Gavin Newsom's getting ready to run 28, but he's just another centrist who will disappoint. Maybe, Diego Vargas, I love you, you're a regular, but I don't think that it is productive for people to make those kinds of statements, those predictions that you could not possibly know to be true or not true. Gavin Newsom is still better than every Republican candidate that could run. He has a mixed record, but he's very electable. He's tall, handsome, white guy, and a lot of the party is going to be, suffering from, the belief that America is too racist and misogynistic and homophobic to elect anybody but a straight white man on the Democratic ticket. So, a lot of primary voters are probably going to be taking that into consideration in 2027. I'm not going to sit here and write the eulogy for Gavin Newsom's campaign just because he's not the progressive option that I want. He would still be a good option, in my opinion. Robert Cage says, I hope Elon's party destroys MAGA. I would also love it if it destroyed MAGA. Fall War Productions says, I'd rather Gavin stay in California because Utah is still doing big projects with him. Oh, is that true, Fall War Productions? I didn't know that. Donald Trump 420 says, why didn't House vote to release the Epstein files? I've never met the guy. They protect the left. The House is under control of the Republican Party. The Republicans are the one who are blocking the release of the Epstein files. The Democrats are the one who are trying to vote for it. Donald Trump 420. So I'm not really sure if you're getting all the accurate facts here. CS17 says, how progressive are you? From toe to tip, my guy. But ask me a policy question. I'll let you know how I feel about it. The Fit Hunter says, by saying you are anti-MAGA, it means you're America last. That is not what that means, Fit Hunter. I am against the project of MAGA America, making Donald Trump a dictator, allowing massive amounts of corruption through his crypto coin and accepting gifts from the Qataris, for example, the constant lying, the fucking over the 99% so that the billionaire class can have one more private jet and one more mega yacht, shit like that. Keg Dog says, can't support Trump and America. Yeah, I agree with that. Chris says, why is the most aggressive move Dems have made so far to walk away, while Booker calls them good? Chris, I disagree with that. The Dems have been doing a ton of stuff. They're barnstorming the country. They are holding massive rallies and town halls where Republican politicians are currently refusing to meet with their constituents. There are a lot of people who are doing the work in the Democratic Party. Maybe they're not doing what you want them to do. Maybe not enough of them are doing what you want them to do or being aggressive enough for you. But they don't really have any political power right now, being out of the majority. They don't have the White House. They don't have the judiciary. And they have a lot less money available to them than the Republican Party. So, they're doing what they can. Gee Wee says, how come Republicans and Democrats kiss each other all the time, but why does Trump and Biden kiss? They don't. Please don't spam the comments. Miles West says, Gavin can't find water for hydrogens. Hydrones. I don't think your spelling is great. But yeah, did the government make some mistakes during the California wildfires? Yeah, but the bigger problem was climate change. They did what they could. Godless Gratitude says, I'm ex-IFBC, and let me tell you how serious these Christo-fascists really are. Oh no, I believe you. Jew Make says Trump 2028, and that is an example of the kind of comment that gets you blocked. I don't care if you have different opinions than me, but actually ask a question, be part of the conversation. Garrett Russell says, up 365K in crypto due to Trump. Cool. I'm happy for you, buddy. Mike Butt says, you think of USA goes back on gold standards, would that make American dollar stronger? I'm not really sure. Garrett, you're also not asking questions, so you are out of here. Congratulations. All right, Chase says, I think Reagan was the best Republican candidate. Am I right? I mean, I do not like Reagan, but Reagan was better than W. Reagan was better than Trump, so yeah, I guess. I mean, I like McCain probably of all of those guys. You said candidate, not elected guy. Let's see here. Chris says, you're not a progressive if you think them campaigning is aggressive. I mean, whatever, Chris, man. If I'm not meeting your progressive credentials because I'm not throwing enough hate at the Democratic Party, then fine. I guess I'm not a progressive then. I just don't think that it's valuable when the Republican Party is fucking disappearing legal residents to concentration camps both here and in countries led by vicious dictators like El Salvador. They are currently, doubling the staff of ICE that they can go after, citizens and anybody that disagrees with him. Women are dead because of these abortion bans. People have died in ICE detention who have done nothing fucking wrong. But you want to spend all of your time and energy taking pot shots at the Democrats? It kind of feels like you're yelling at kids reading magazines when somebody's stabbing you in the neck. Scrolling down to the bottom. Let's see here. Shanzi says, chances of Trump getting impeached or arrested due to Epstein. I would say very low. Trump has captured the Republican Party, and the Republican Party is in the majority in every place that matters in the government right now. If Democrats sweep the House during the midterms and get the Senate and get a whole bunch of seats in the Senate, then he will get impeached, and it will be one of a million things that he has done to deserve being impeached. All right, Jared says, what was Reagan's reason for believing trickle-down economics would work? Jared, I'm going to say something controversial but brave, but I don't think Reagan thought that trickle-down economics was going to work. I think that he just wanted he wanted the rich and powerful to be even more rich and powerful because he was rich and powerful. Chase says, what is the Libertarian Party? The Libertarian Party believes in as little government as humanly possible. There shouldn't be a post office. It should just be private corporations. There shouldn't be public schools. There shouldn't be an IRS. There shouldn't be the fire department. It should all just be private organizations. And it's not a good system. Everywhere they've tried it, the town's got taken over by bears and shit like that. And if you read the book Dark Money, you discover how much of the Libertarian Party has been astroturfed by the billionaire class because they want to dismantle the government so they won't have to pay any taxes, and they won't have to worry about safety regulations for their, massive factories and shit like that. Chase says, so like an oligarchy, pretty much. Yeah, probably. Rick J says, I think Biden's presidency was successful. Yeah, absolutely. There were definitely big issues, but yeah, as far as on the scale of accomplishments, I think it was massively successful. Dallo says, socialism Hanover worked either. Don't know what that means. XOXOXO says, do you think he would stage another coup if Democrats impeached him in the Senate and House? 100%. I put nothing past him. He's going to try to do martial law. He's going to try to do a coup. He's going to try to have the Supreme Court change the rules so that he can install himself as dictator for life. He's going to threaten the people in Congress. He's going to threaten their lives. He's going to bully them. He's going to send his, his followers to go do violence against judges that rule against him. He will do all of the things. There's no line for him. Dale says, what accomplishments? I'll name one because sometimes I get a little winded when I go through all of the things that the Biden administration accomplished. But the largest investment in renewable energy in world history. Mr. Bean says he's leaving. JD is going to take over. His health is bad. I don't believe that's accurate, Mr. Bean. I have not seen any reporting to say that. Danny, I think if that was the thing, it would be the biggest fucking news on the planet. Let's see here. Danny Santos says, how bad do you think it'll get in the next 3 years? It depends entirely on if we do the work, Danny. If people like you and me do the work of stopping the Trump administration, of empowering Democrats, of putting political pressure on elected representatives, on putting pressure on massive corporations to be on the right side of history, then it won't be that bad. But if we don't do that work, then it'll get real bad. All right. Soak in the Sunset says, do you support Israel? I support the citizens of Israel, and I support the citizens of Palestine. I do not support the government of Israel. I do not support Hamas. Mr. Bean says his press secretary addressed it yesterday. If that's what she said, I think I would have heard it, Mr. Beans. And Kara says Trump is not the kind of guy who would leave because of his health. That is accurate. Chase says, who was the best Republican president? Oh, I don't know. You know, I don't have any love for Nixon or Reagan or either of the Bushes, but they were better than Trump. You know, yeah, I don't know. Lincoln probably. Let's see here. Talon says, tell everyone why he's dismantling our unions. Because he wants to empower the billionaire class so that we will all become wage slave serfs who are fucking slurping up all the chemical runoff from their factories and dying early deaths to cancer. Soak in the Sunset says, why wouldn't you support a group from Palestine that is trying to fight for freedom through years of oppression? Because they're doing war crimes. Soak in the Sunset. And I don't care what somebody did to you. You are not allowed to do war crimes. You are not allowed to kill innocent people. You're not allowed to take civilians hostage. You're not allowed to kill children. Israel is also doing war crimes. That is why I don't support Netanyahu, the same way that I do not support Hamas. Dismal City says, do you believe Trump when he says the Epstein thing is a hoax? No, I do not. Trump's a liar. I believe almost nothing that he says. Mimi says, if the swelling is typical due to age, sadly, he can continue to be president. That is accurate. Ash CCC says, if you want to hear MAGA talk in a non-aggressive manner about their taxes, who should I watch? I don't know if there is anybody good in the MAGA sphere, Ash CCC. I think that if you're a talking head or an elected politician in the MAGA sphere, I think that you have zero credibility just like that, you know? Are the people on the right side of the conservative spectrum who maybe have, you know, good takes or are a little bit more of a good faith actor? Yeah, you know, like I like Tim Miller if I'm going to pick a Republican, you know, but yeah, you know, it's a real fucking slim pickings there. Let's see here. Bobby Lannon says, is Trump on the list? I would be really surprised if he wasn't. You know, they have over a decade of a friendship, a very close friendship, Epstein and Donald Trump. He's said a whole bunch of really creepy comments about finding young women attractive. He has been, you know, accused by over 24 women of rape, and one who was said that she was 13 years old at the time, and that Epstein was there also. Yeah, there's just like a ton of, you know, evidence, circumstantial evidence to point to in that direction, you know. East Coast says, do you think removing Biden for Harris was correct? Harris did not run in the primary. Technically she did because she ran as vice president on the same ticket as Biden, and so they both won the primary. But yeah, I 100% think that that was the only move that they had. I wish that Biden had not run and we could have a primary. I wish that Biden had dropped out earlier and Harris would have had more time, but there really was no other option. There couldn't have been a primary at the convention because states like Ohio were threatening to leave the Democratic candidate off of their ballot unless they were given a name before the convention happened. Yeah, there was no way to justify picking anybody besides Kamala Harris because then the Democratic Party would have been called racist or misogynist or both. John Doe says nobody was voted for Harris. They only voted for Biden. Well, I mean, she was the vice president, so they also voted for her. Diego Vargas says, did they release his medical records to distract the public from Epstein files? I don't think there is distracting the public from Epstein files. Zoke in the Sunset says, do you support Zionism? I don't know what you think Zionism means. You know, some people think that Zionism means that Israel can do whatever they want and ethnically cleanse all the surrounding countries. And some people think that Zionism means that just the people who are living in Israel should be able to stay there because they're just regularized people trying to live their lives just like you and me. Soak in the Sunset says, do you support Sharia law? No, I don't support any kind of religious doctrine. I do not believe that countries should be ruled by religious fiat. I think that they should be ruled by the people. Mr. Bean said she was polling higher than anyone. That's great. So Scuba Steve says, but here's the thing: we Republicans want the files to be released as well. Well, then you should put some political pressure on your elected representatives to accommodate that. But your Republican elected officials are getting it from the Trump administration. They are being browbeaten every second of every fucking day by MAGA and all of their fucking acolytes. And so, if it's important to you that the Republican Party stand up to Donald Trump and release all the information that they have on Epstein and his clients, then you need to put political pressure on the politicians that would make that decision. Your elected Republican politicians. Let's see here. Soaking the Stetson says, we have Christianity Sharia law in this country. Yeah, I mean, that's what the Supreme Court and the Republican Party are trying to instill. They're trying to create a Christo-fascist state here in America. And it's part of the reason why I do these lives, is to try to stop that from happening. Rent-Free Bruddy says, yeah, I don't know, Twitter, most MAGAs are burning their hats and stuff. They don't like this. Yeah, but do they have the kind of follow-through to actually get what they want? Or are they just going to burn their hats and yell and scream, Soaking the Sunset says, go do your research on Sharia law. It protects our citizens and cut taxes. Soak in the Sunset, do you believe that we should cut taxes for everybody or just the billionaire class? Godless Gratitude says, the Heritage Foundation didn't factor in the cult of Trump. I'm not really sure what you mean by that, Godless. Sharia, don't like it. Rock the Casbah. I'm with you, Dan Blackroy. Fog War Productions says, my intention is to send Mike Lee to the Shadow Realm in 2026. His betrayal cannot stand. From your lips to God's ears, good sir. Soaking the Sunset says, why wouldn't we implement an Islamic Sharia law? You know what? I'm just done with you. Good Lord. RG3 says, I'm so tired of politics. Well, politics isn't tired of you, my guy. It is going to continue to affect your life, regardless of if you are tired of it or not. And so I say rest up, enjoy your weekend, go see a movie, and then get back in the fight, because we need every human that we can get. Period. Says Republicans are voting against releasing the files. That is accurate. Right, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Flamingo Mo says, if they were serious, they would pew their hats like they did the Bud Light cans. I'm sure some of them have. CS says, do you believe billionaires should not exist, meaning tax them at 100% once they reach $1 billion? I do believe that, CS. If every billionaire woke up tomorrow with only $900 million, I would shed exactly 0 tears. Godless Gratitude says, they didn't take into account the power and stability of Trump's cult. Their plans will implode. From your lips to God's ears, Godless Gratitude. Let's see here. Dan Dapper says, is it true that Cook's spots in the president's, is it true that cooks spit in the president's food? I guess you'd have to ask them. Rent-Free Buddy says, what do you think the MAGA should do? Focus on removing him? MAGA should remove support from any politician that refuses to comply with their demands to release the information about Jeffrey Epstein's collaborators. They should call their representatives every day and demand it. They should go to their town halls, and if they're not having town halls, they should go to their offices, and they should not vote or vote for Democrats if those politicians don't vote to release the Epstein files. So yeah, if you're not willing to vote for Democrats to punish Republicans for not releasing the Epstein files, for blocking for all the collaborators that are on the Epstein list, then just don't vote. That's the other best thing that you should do. MAGA. Scrolling down to the bottom. Rockhard said, the ones that need to stop protesting is the people that are Republicans in Texas and other states. Not really sure what you mean by that. Turd Ferguson says, why didn't Biden release them? Because Biden was not in charge of the FBI. There's supposed to be division of labor in the government where the president doesn't tell the Department of Justice what they can and cannot do or who they should be opening investigations into. What Trump is doing in regards to that, where he's trying to control every agency in the government, is wildly unconstitutional and unethical. It is antithetical to the entire point of America. So the person that would have released those files would have been the FBI director, a guy named Christopher Wray, who was a Republican, who was nominated and sat by Donald Trump. So if you're wanting to know why, the guy that Trump appointed, who is a Republican, to lead the FBI, who led the FBI during the Trump administration and the Biden administration, and was just replaced by Kash Patel, why none of those people released the Epstein files, then maybe ask them. Because, maybe Trump, the guy that appointed them, told them not to. Let's say here, user a bunch of numbers says, who cares about Epstein file? Stop the genocide. Both parties are responsible for this genocide. User a whole bunch of numbers. I mean, why not? Why? Por qué no los dos? We can't worry about both things. We can't worry about the Trump administration sending money and weapons to Israel so they can do ethnic cleansing, and we also can't worry about the Trump administration protecting a whole bunch of PDF files from legal accountability, including potentially the president of the United States. Let's do both. Carol Dunlevy says case was pending against GM. Garland wouldn't even prosecute for the insurrection. Merrick Garland equals huge mistake. You know, I tend to agree with that framing, Carol, but I'm also, you know, I know a little bit about the way that the Justice Department works, and we don't know what they know. You know, like we don't know the evidence that they are sifting through, where things seem so obvious to you and me, you know, potentially there is information that we are not getting. And so if you listen to other, you know, DAs and AGs like Preet Bharara, for example, they'll tell you like, look, it might look like a slam dunk case from the outside, but they might know something that we don't on the inside. It feels to me like Merrick Garland was playing things way too conservatively. But again, I don't know. I was not working in that office. Only people working in the office would know that. David Cotton says Biden and Garland had it all. They would have released for election win. If they had it, they would have released it for the election win. Yeah, I guess that's evidence that they didn't have it. Jay Ferrani says, can we make a system work where there is a legit third or fourth party? Only if we have ranked choice voting. Otherwise, third and fourth parties would just be spoiler candidates. And the Republican Party is trying to make ranked choice voting illegal. So if that's something that you want, then you have to support the Democrats. Alrighty. Okay. Godless Gratitude says Biden wasn't allowed to cancel student debt while Trump destroys the Department of Education. That is accurate. Scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up. Chino says, who cares about the Epstein files? Just fix the economy. Why can't we do both? Why can't we yell at the Trump administration for crashing the dollar, for crashing the bond market, for increasing inflation, increasing unemployment, increasing price and cost of living, while also yelling at him for blocking a bunch of PDF files that are in the Epstein case documents, potentially including himself as well. Rent-Free Buddy says, yeah, didn't Biden hide them too? No, Christopher Wray did, and Christopher Wray was a Republican who was appointed by Donald Trump. So if you want to know why he didn't release the Epstein files, then you got to ask him. Alrighty, having some Which et al. Did that fix it? I don't know if that fixed it. Oy. Alrighty, great live stream so far today, guys. My camera's futzing over here. Oh no, it's fucking off. Oh, for some reason it wasn't charging. That's a fucking bummer. All right, I don't know if you guys can still hear me over in Twitch and YouTube land. I have to change my camera here. Hold on a second. It's like, yeah, it's not gonna be as good, but it's it's okay, I guess. It's a little less good, you know. Yeah, that's better. Alrighty, let's get back into these TikTok comments. Let's see here. Carmine says, hearing people block for PDFs is so weird to me still. Yeah, completely agree with that. Scooby-Doo says, what's your opinion of the necessity to release the Epstein files? I'm for it. Let's see here. Rent-Free Buddy says, well, Republicans lost midterms. They will lose control of Senate. They lost all swing states. Rent-Free Buddy, you might think that that's going to happen, but don't get cocky. You know, like let's not make these kind of wild predictions that we don't know if they're accurate or not. Cheeto says, you're all acting like Trump's fault. The real corruption is all these tenured senators. It is Trump's fault. He has completely consolidated power in government. He has fired everybody who disagrees with him. He has taken over the Republican Party. He is in control of Congress. He is in control of the judiciary. He is in control of the Department of Justice. So all of this is his fault. Gino says, you are all blinded by Trump hate. Their problem is these politicians have been there too long. I don't disagree that they've been there too long, but why are you not willing to accept the decisions that Trump has made that have put us where we are, Gino? Bray says, what do you think of the fact that the Epstein release bill was amended to a crypto bill? I think that was probably just the Democratic Party trying to keep it salient, trying to make it happen right now. They knew that this was a bill that was going to be currently debated, and so it was a way to get Republicans on the record about it. Scott Clower says Trump is calling for gerrymandering. Yep. Chino says because you guys never agree with any presidents elected. What are you talking about, Chino? I don't think you're saying real things, Chino. Devin Ali too says, then you don't know everything about politics. I'm sorry, what? Lord. Y'all are just making things up like cray cray. Annoying Poutine says, how do you feel about Trump's 50 days deadline on Russia? Trump is not a smart person. And so I do not believe that he has the ability to force any kind of concessions out of Vladimir Putin at all. We're gonna see the end of the 50 days, and Putin is either going to, tell Trump to buzz off. Trump is either going to continue sending Ukraine weapons or not. He's not going to accelerate and do more. I'm pretty confident that he would never send American military into there. But yeah, I think what Trump would prefer is that Putin do what he's doing, but just keep it quiet. I think that's the problem that he has with it. All right, Chino, congratulations. You have annoyed me to the point of getting blocked. All right. CS17 says, how soon until Trump talks about buying Greenland again? Yeah, what the fuck ever happened to that? What the fuck happened to us taking back over the Panama Canal? What the fuck ever happened to us taking over Canada? The dude's got the fucking attention span of a goldfish. Truth Matters says, I agree with Lev. I am not sure he sent what he's told us he sent. Who is Lev? Who are you talking about? Yeah, I don't really see anything. Okay. All right, annoying Poutine. I got that one. Sparing criminal evidence. That is agree. All right, yeah. I think we're all caught up. Lev Parnas. I agree with Lev. I'm not even sure he sent what he's told us to send. Didn't Lev Parnas, isn't he the guy that said that the Trump administration should tell the judiciary to fuck off or something? Is that guy? Am I thinking of the wrong person? I don't know, Rush. All right, things have really calmed down on here, guys. So yeah, unless we got more questions to ask, we might answer. Unless we got more questions to answer, then we might need to wrap things up soon. Well, yeah, I want to thank everybody for being here, for all your questions and comments and support and likes and shares. I know that it can be really difficult, reading the news and seeing all this fucking bullshit that's going on all the fucking time. Oh, I'm not sure that Donald Trump sent the weapons to Ukraine. Yeah, that is still TBD. Flamingo Mo says, don't forget to collect your points. What does that mean? Collect your points. Interesting. Yeah. If anybody has any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, do not be shy about reaching out. I got a couple of chats going on with some people there that I'm very proud of, and I hope that we are making progress in terms of understanding each other's political perspectives and recognizing who are good politicians and who are bad politicians. What's up, Bandit Boss? And yeah, I appreciate all the support that you guys give me, whether it is the free kind, like liking and sharing and telling all your friends how great my live streams are and that they should all come check it out and increase my viewership numbers. Or if you want to support financially, you can. You don't have to, though. I have a Patreon you can join that you can find on my website, jaredberenstein.com. I got 4 patrons right now. They're dope as hell. I love them to death. I've also got a store that you can buy things from, also on my website, jaredberenstein.com. And you can also send gifts on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube, and you subscribe and all that good stuff. My regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And you can see my full schedule of live streaming and stand-up on my website, jaredberenstein.com. And lastly, just my heartfelt plea for everybody to do the work. Hey, I'm a cowboy. Pew. Just do the work, guys. Please do the work and recruit other people to do the work, because that is the only way that we get out of this fucking quagmire. Yeah, if you want to know what the work is, if you need resources for figuring out what you can do, you got gas in the tank and you want to be part of the solution, go check out my Discord. Link is in my bio, and there's a bunch of great suggestions there for ways that you can get involved, but we just need more people doing this work. That is the only way that we get out of this, guys. All right, let's see here. Commenters, team members need to claim their TikTok points at the heart at the top. Is that a thing? I didn't know anything about that, Flamingo Mo. But yeah, I guess if you are a commenter or team member, then don't forget to collect your TikTok points at the heart at the top. I don't know what that means, but if Flamingo Mo is telling me it's a thing, I believe him. All right. Scooby Doo says, with all this, what's your final action statement? Do the work. Scooby Doo, do the work. And I've often given the monologue about what the work is. And so if you still don't know what the work is, then check out my Discord. It is all written there. CS1 says, would you ever consider running for Congress? I would really like to not have to. I don't want that job. I like this job that I'm currently doing. Also doesn't really work with my life schedule as a touring comedian. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. I will see you guys back here on Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel, and have a great weekend. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.